Here it comes. It's time for Image in the 90s. And today we're talking about Shadowhawk, Volume 1, the entire 4-issue miniseries from Jim Valentino. Now, Jim Valentino was maybe not as popular as some of the others of the Image founders, like Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Eric Larson even, right? But Jim Valentino has a good foundational basis on comic book art, comic book making. He was the only one who had actually self-published before, and Shadowhawk was his creation. It's a little Moon Knight, it's a little Darkhawk, and it's a little Wolverine, but it's all distinctly Shadowhawk. Let's dive into this. I haven't read this in years, right? So it's by Jim Valentino. We got Digital Chameleon here on the coloring, Diane Valentino on the letters, Eric Stevenson as the editor. Notice that. Very early on, Eric Stevenson's involvement in Image. Jack Kirby, this book is dedicated to. So it starts off with these dudes. They're crooks, they're criminals, they're thugs, and they're trying to attack this homeless man. Why? I guess just for the jollies of it. Turns out it's not a homeless man, it's Shadowhawk, dressed up as a homeless man. The first time we ever see Shadowhawk is this, and he just takes these dudes and kicks their asses, and then we get introduced to how he likes to take out his foes. He breaks their spines. Shadowhawk breaks spines. That's what's going on. So then we get introduced to this police detective Reeves and his captain. I can't remember his name right now. His captain doesn't like Reeves' partner. I can't remember his name right now for some reason. I can only remember the name Reeves because it's really big right there on my screen. But then it goes back to Nighthawk. Now, or Shadowhawk. Yeah, Shadowhawk. So one of the things that's weird about this is that the perspective of the narration of the captions is someone like talking to Shadowhawk. One of the big gimmicks of this series is that we don't know who Shadowhawk is, and we're supposed to put together the clues to figure out who it is. But then you got Shadowhawk running around, then you got the police captain and this dude talking back and forth. He doesn't like his partner, tells him to go crawl back into the bottle, get him out of the bottle. Harlem's on fire. So there's this dude named Arson. He is just burning up Harlem. Then we go to this crowd scene where we meet these two dudes. One name, I think it's Hojo. Let me open up my book here. Yeah, Hojo and Paul Johnstone. Spoilers. Shadowhawk's in the scene, but we don't get that revealed yet. But they're basically talking about how Johnstone used to be a DA, but he quit because he kind of got disenfranchised, right? Then we cut to after their conversation. We get a little bit of a Shaft Youngblood nod there. Then we get into this old woman seeing some dudes selling drugs, selling crack. She attacks him, says, "You won't be selling that crack on my street." Shadowhawk intervenes. "You're going to kill an old woman? I want to break your backs, man." That's what he does. He attacks him. Pretty badass stuff. He gets shot, but he's got a bulletproof armor. That's a really great scene. Now, like I said, Jim Valentino's not the flashiest. He's not the most popular of the Image founders, but he's got a very solid foundation on comics, how to make them, and how to tell a story, especially visually, and to do things with different perspectives, different action angles, and things like that, putting it together. This feels the most like an 80s, like indie comic than the other Image ones. Those definitely cemented and rooted in the 90s. This one feels firmly planted in the 80s a little bit, but some cool action scenes. We get introduced to this reporter. She's trying to report on this vigilante, but it's being covered up by her editor. She's like, "I'm going to go take this hire to his boss," who is this woman we meet, name, is it Max? Anyway, her criminal name is Vendetta. She's super rich. Her father, she explains, was a mob don. He died. She took out all of his enemies. She's like super rich. She's the one responsible for burning Harlem. She's the one that sent Arson to do it. And Arson shows up in her office just to like fuck with her and gets pissed off. It's just there to introduce her, right? And then we get a little bit more Shadowhawk action. He's busting through the glass. We get the police detective. They're coming after Shadowhawk. They're trying to stop him. What's Vendetta going to do? It's all getting tied up together. And then the reporter comes to talk to Vendetta. And oddly enough, as she's telling her about Shadowhawk, she just gives her a massage. Really weird and off-putting. And then we get a nice like centerfold spread of Shadowhawk. That's how we end issue number 1. And then we see the first image ever drawn of Shadowhawk by Jim Valentino. In issue number 2, we get this cool, like, foily wraparound cover. And in this issue, we're promised an appearance by Spawn and Shadowhawk versus Arson. And that's what we get. Now we get Eric Vincent on the coloring and Kurt Hathaway on the lettering. Lettering improves. Coloring gets worse for me. I don't like the coloring in issues 3, 4, and 5, or 2, 3, and 4 compared to issue number 1. But in this one, we get some kids, college kids. They're in the wrong place at the wrong time. They should have known better. They get attacked because in the early 90s, the threat of gang violence was everywhere in the media, on the news, all that kind of stuff. There are some interesting color choices here. Like in the background, I love the green and the blue there, but it just, something about Shadowhawk does not pop here, and it kind of takes me out of it. But we get to see some more Shadowhawk action. Some decent enough colors, but they kind of get muddied up. And then we get to a party scene. It's one of Vendetta's parties. The Antoinette, Miss Antoinette, the reporter, is there. She's talking to one of the reporters from the Spawn books. And then the police officer, or the detective, who's the partner of Reeves, his name, let me look, and it's Maxie is her name. Yeah, Lieutenant Jax. Lou Jax, there we go. Jax. Jax is the one that's being set up as the guy who the captain doesn't like, right? So he actually has a friendship with Vendetta. So we get introduced to that concept. And then the deputy mayor shows up and he's like, hey, you lay off this vigilante bit. We're going to keep this quiet. Meanwhile, Arson is back up to his shenanigans, just burning shit up. And, Shadowhawk's got to stop that, right? Meanwhile, we get introduced to these new characters. They keep introducing these characters to be red herrings. But we get introduced to this dude, Carl, and Christina. Christina used to be a police officer, but she got removed for excessive force. Then we get that Spawn reporter back on the screen, and right here, and a really cool double-page spread. Actually, yeah, it's a double-page spread, but I didn't realize. Maybe it's not a double-page spread. But anyway, this is where Shadowhawk meets Spawn. A very brief cameo. Basically, Spawn shows up and goes, hey, if you're the one doing the arson, we're going to have problems. But if you're trying to stop him, that's cool. Shadowhawk's like, I ain't doing no arson. And Spawn's like, all right, finish it tonight or I will. And that's the Spawn cameo. But I like Jim Valentino's Spawn. Actually looks really good. It's all cape, but that's all you got to do for Spawn. Just make him look cool. Chains and capes, right? Chains and capes. Then we cut to, I can't tell if that's Reeves or Jax. I think it's Reeves. Yeah, it's Reeves. He sees the police captain. Police captain's pissed. He tells him that he thinks Jax is the Shadowhawk and he's going to prove it. Then we get a double-page spread of Shadowhawk going after Arson. A nice little fight sequence. I like it. It's lively. I just wish the colors were a little bit better. But 3 double-page spreads together. That one didn't mash up too well, did it? Anyway, and then a big explosion. We don't know what's going to happen. Then we get introduced to another character who is the sister. Now, this is Tawana, who is the sister of one of the dudes that Shadowhawk has incapacitated and put into the hospital. She is swearing revenge. This will become important. Then we see Hojo, who is John Stone's, I think, brother, right? I'm pretty sure. And he's like fiending for a fix. He's calling out for his brother. He needs some help. And then we get introduced to this just random ass new character who's this monster in the sewer who like kills people with acid, has to feed on them. Then we go to issue number 3, which has a glow-in-the-dark cover. Really using the gimmicks here. And the biggest clue to the identity of Shadowhawk is in the first few pages of this book. And we get to see, wait, where'd it go? I don't have the mugging in here. There's a mugging scene that we see. And it's John Stone getting mugged. And then the next big double-page splash starts with, that's why you do what you do. Anyway, that's really odd. Somehow I missed that first page there. I'll have to show it to you. Then we get this double-page splash. Shadowhawk is injured from that big explosion, that big fire. He passes out in the alley. This woman walks by, and since Shadowhawk's passed out, he can't help her. She gets killed by the monster, who's going to burn people with acid. This is a really great centerfold piece right there. Then we cut to Vendetta, and she gets introduced to Tahana, and starts kind of leading this idea that she wants to start this criminal enterprise and introduces this dude, Blackjack, who is some dumbass character, but he's like super powered. This is where the coloring starts getting so muddy. And look at Tahana's face. Like, what is those? What is the smudging? What is the idea here? Anyway, we get to the police scene. The reporter's there. She's like, let me see the body. Gnarly. Love the paneling there. Love how we get to see this like dissolved body of this victim across 4 panels in a 9-panel grid. Really like that. Shadowhawk has fixed his armor, and now he's back ready to go and find this acid-spewing monster. They don't know that it's a monster yet, but he's out there ready to attack. Then we get introduced to this dude who's on fire. It's actually arson. Somehow the explosion has changed him, and he is now permanently on fire and is able to shoot like fire bolts out and shit like that. We get some more police action here. The captain's trying to present his case on Jax, and it's not working. They're not buying it. They're like, you need more evidence. Then we got Shadowhawk following the trail of acid, and then he comes across, or he will come across the monster. But first, this is some really interesting pacing going on here, and I like the way that the layouts go over here. Shadowhawk's looking for this monster. Arson's out there freaking out because he's on fire. The monster's just trying to get some help. As he's about to attack Hojo, then he comes across Arson as well as Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk tries to get Arson to help him, but he won't. And he winds up doing the right thing anyway and starts attacking the monster. This big fight erupts, and dude, he dispatches him by shoving his grappling hook, shooting it right through this dude's chest, ripping his heart out. What a great panel. Holy cow. That was fun. Then we get to the police captain. He's had enough of it. Meanwhile, Johnstone visits his brother in the hospital. He's not doing so well. Plus, he's been recently mugged. Hint, hint. Anyway, the police captain's like, I've had enough of this. I'm calling in a friend from Chicago to take out Shadowhawk, because they think Shadowhawk's responsible for everything. We're bringing in the Savage Dragon. So no crazy cover gimmick on issue number 4, but we do got Savage Dragon there. So Savage Dragon shows up. He's not necessarily super pleased to be there. He's dealing with a lot of people lumping him in with other superheroes, and he's not down. Savage Dragon comes across really like an asshole in this issue. So it's on character, but a little bit off character. But he seems like he doesn't really want to be there, but he's doing a favor for an old friend. And then Johnstone shows up and finds out that his brother's died. So Hojo's dead, allegedly. We shall see, right? Then we get some more of this police drama going on. Basically, what's going on with this police stuff is they're setting up this one guy, Jax, Lieutenant Jax, I think, Lou Jax, to be the potential lead suspect for who is Shadowhawk. And he's got, like, a secret, so he's always missing and things like that. And they'll eventually reveal that secret, and it's here. He reveals that his mentor is near death or some shit. His parents died. His mentor's in the hospital, so he goes to the hospital, and it's pretty lame. It's just there to be, a red herring. But then we go back to Vendetta, who is now in her full-on supervillain gear, and Arson shows up, and he's like, yo, what the fuck? She goes, hey, tell you what, come down to the laboratory with me. We'll figure out how to keep you contained, right? This laboratory, they've discovered, they believe it belongs to some other race on Earth. I think it's part of this book, The Others. I don't know how far that actually went, but Blackjack is there using this technology to turn Tahana into a superhero vortex. She's got wind powers now, right? So we're building a superhero or a supervillain army that's going to be geared up to go against Shadowhawk. And I really kind of like this. This, even though it's a 4-issue series, it does a great job of just kind of setting up a lot of stuff, but doing it in a fun, non-boring kind of way. And it's got some interesting color choices, but there's something about the printing. It almost looks like a Valiant book. There's too much orange in it and shit like that. But I like the use of blues and greens, so I don't want to be too harsh on the coloring. But Shadowhawk's after another criminal, and then Savage Dragons finds out what's going on, and then a nice double-page splash. We're about to have a battle. A battle between Savage Dragon and Shadowhawk, and it's fun. It's nice. Perfectly choreographed. Wonderfully executed. Coloring could be a little bit better. Like I said, here and there, just a little bit more distinction. Maybe between the backgrounds and the foregrounds. I mean, it's there, but it's just the orange. I don't know, man. There's something about it. It just becomes kind of brown. But at the same time, there are choices that I like, but it doesn't always come across very well. In the meantime, Vendetta, they decide they want to recruit Shadowhawk, not destroy him. So they go after to save him from Savage Dragon. and then recruit him. You get a really wonky image here of Savage Dragon kicking Blackjack, and it's like, bruh, you just broke your fucking back, Savage. That's savage. Then Savage Dragon gets dispatched. They take Shadowhawk up there. They're like, hey, man, we want you to join us. Shadowhawk's like, nah, I ain't going to join you. Then Vendetta's like, I'll kill you. He's like, option 3, I'm going to jump out the fucking window. And then it's like 10 days later, so 1 week later. And they're like, do you think he survived? They're like, no, he took a big fall. And then Savage Dragon is like, yo, I'm going back to Chicago. I got my own series to start. I ain't got time to fuck with this. And then we end with the still unmasked Shadowhawk thinking about how he's kind of become that which he loathes, that which he hates. He's become a criminal. Is he doing the right thing? Is he truly a hero? So it actually hits hard, not too hard, but it hits decent enough hard. It hits hard enough at the end to really kind of bring it together. Shadowhawk was a fun read. I think it was a very fun read. I think it was stronger than Cyberforce. I think it's stronger than the first issue of Youngblood. I think Spawn is still like top dog, I think, as far as the first year of Image for me, but Shadowhawk was pretty fun. So there's issue number 1. You got some cool bits here. Love it when we just get introduced to the idea that he's just going to bust people's fucking spines. I'm just going to show you some of the better parts. What is John Stone's first name? Paul. Paul's Shadowhawk, y'all. Anyway, I really like it. I was really surprised at how fundamentally sound Jim Valentino was. Like, I wasn't expecting much. I didn't grow up to be a big Valentino fan. And now reading this has kind of got me wanting to, I don't know, go and kind of piece together his Guardians run. I know it couldn't have been too long, right? But this is that wraparound cover I was talking about. I think that's pretty badass. We got some nice double page. But this is where the art just gets a little bit too, I don't know. It's all right. Like I said, I like some of the choices, more particular in the background. They're trying to do what they're trying to do, but it just comes across a little bit muddy, a little, I don't know, just a little orange brownie. I really like Valentino's Spawn. I'll be honest with y'all. But revisiting this was fun. I haven't checked this out in years and years and years. I'm looking forward to checking out more. I mean, like I said, it's not the best thing, but I think it's pretty solid. I had a lot of fun with it. I'll show you. I love this little centerfold gimmick that they keep doing in these. Look at that. That's dope. Issue 3's got the glow-in-the-dark cover. And it looks nice when it glows in the dark. Turn out the lights, and now glow to the extreme. I rock a mic like a vandal. Light up the stage, wax a chump like a candle. Dance. But I had a lot of fun with this. My biggest gripe would be the coloring. But it's very sound. The action sequences are great. The layouts are great. When that dude gets his fucking heart ripped out, that's awesome. I think that's great. I was surprised at how much I actually did dig this. Because to be honest with y'all, I saved this kind of towards last because I thought that this would be one of the weaker ones, but it was actually one of the stronger launches for me. It kept me interested all the way through. It's good, solid superhero storytelling. You got guest appearances. Savage Dragon being the most significant. The Spawn one is pretty wild. And a good solid ending. And a good setup. So, Shadowhawk, really solid. 30 years. Can y'all believe it? I'd give it 3.5 you digs. What do you think of Shadowhawk? What are your recollections? What do you think? What do you rate it? Let us know in the comments down below. This has been Image in the 90s.